Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in. Today we're going to be talking about a thin and light laptop. This is the Lenovo Yoga C940 and it's powered by some very interesting hardware. But before we get into all of the details, why don't you hit the like and subscribe button on our channel and also hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any future updates from us. Now, the Yoga C940 is powered by Intel's Ice Lake processor. This is the Core i7-1065G7. This is a quad-core processor with 8 threads with a base clock of 1.3 GHz capable of boosting all the way up to 3.9 GHz. Pretty impressive. There's also 16 gigs of RAM on board and a 512 GB NVMe drive by Samsung, which is actually pretty damn fast. What I really like is that this 14-inch display is actually a 1080p display instead of being a 4K display. Now, when you have a screen size this small, cramming 4K pixels just makes no sense. Very honestly, it doesn't. It eats into your battery life and it creates all these awkward scaling problems across programs. So Lenovo having stuck with a 1080p display is actually pretty commendable. Other than that, the C940 also comes with a fingerprint reader on board. There's also an included stylus which very elegantly fits into the body, and of course it does this thing. That's why the Yoga. Can you do that? Bet you can't. But bragging about the Yoga aside, let's talk about the performance of this machine. Now, being powered by Intel's Ice Lake processors, there's two things that you get. You have a low power CPU, as in a low power consumption CPU based on the 10 nanometer process, so it can give you slightly better battery life than before, and you also end up getting slightly better performance. Both of those promises do hold true. Now, we've run our benchmark tests on this machine. We've got PC Mark 10 Office, we've got PC Mark 10 applications, 3D Mark, PC Mark 8, and a whole other bunch of programs that we basically use to test the performance of thin and light laptops. In all of those tests, the C940 does pretty well. You can see all of the numbers on your screen, but where it really does definitely shine is in day-to-day tasks. Now, if you're gonna buy this machine for office use or even college, yes, it's a pricey proposition, but here's the really cool thing. This is a machine that's designed to last you a few years. Having used this machine as a daily driver for a few weeks now, it's been very clear that besides heavy photo editing or video editing, it can handle pretty much anything. You can have as many tabs in your favorite browser open as you want. You can have multiple presentations open, multiple Excel sheets. On a day-to-day basis, I'm typically dealing with 4 to 5 heavy data-based Excel sheets with CPU readouts and a whole host of data entries. And the C940 does not falter at any point. It does not hang, it does not freeze, it works reliably. So, and even at the peak of its usage, it still remains fairly cool, as in the fans don't ramp up too loud, so that's really nice, and it doesn't feel like it's getting too hot for usage. That's what the U series, or rather these low power CPUs, are designed for, and this one being the 10 nanometer one from Intel is actually pretty impressive. So performance wise, as long as you're using this for needs such as researching, typing up documents, making Excel sheets, PowerPoint presentations, even converting stuff between different formats, let's say you're converting a PDF to Word or Word to PDF, vice versa, heavy tasks like those as well, you're not going to experience any trouble. In fact, you could even get away with a little bit of photo editing. Instead of Lightroom Classic, if you were to use the Adobe Lightroom, you could still get away with a little bit of photo editing as well. Photoshop does tend to make the laptop sluggish, so I think that would be the breaking point for this machine. Moving past the performance, which is definitely impressive, let's talk about this display. This 1080p panel is, if there had to be a fault with it, it's the fact that it's a glossy panel, and it is definitely very reflective. Even at its peak brightness, you can still see a lot of what's behind you, especially if you're in lighting condition like right now. It's a bright room that we're shooting in, and I can see a lot of stuff behind me. I can see the stuff on the wall, etc. If you go outdoors with this laptop, you will definitely have this issue. It doesn't hinder with legibility of text, it doesn't hinder with bright content, but it does definitely play a role with clarity in general. So It would have been nice had Lenovo stuck with a matte coated display on this one, but you get a glossy one. But it's not bad. It's actually quite bright, clocking in at about a 320 lux of brightness and fairly consistent across the corners with 310 across all 4 edges. The other thing about this display is that it is touch enabled. Being a yoga, this machine also has to double up as a tablet and therefore has to have touch capabilities. So it is quite likely that the reason you have this glossy panel is so that you could have the touch functionality. Other than that, genuinely there's very little to complain about the display, except for the fact that it's very reflective and can often also be used as a mirror in a pinch. Just put a dark wallpaper on this and you can see yourself like I can right now. You don't even need to use the webcam. Speaking of the webcam, this is actually really cool. It's a 720p webcam on here and comes with a physical privacy shutter. So this is something really nice that Lenovo has been doing with a lot of its recent laptops. They're building physical shutters on the webcam because, you know, they probably thought that people care about the privacy, since so many of us do tend to tape that up. So they've built in a physical shutter. That's nice. The quality of the webcam itself is fairly average and can't really expect more from it. What the webcam doesn't do is Windows Hello. So it's just a webcam, does not have the 3D face modeling hardware. There's no infrared cameras here. So there is no Windows Hello facial recognition, which is okay because you have this really nice fingerprint sensor under the keyboard. Now, speaking of the keyboard, it's every bit Lenovo. Like, I don't know how to say this because Lenovo's keyboards, whether it's the ThinkPad lineup, whether it's the X1 series, whether it's IdeaPad, they've got this very signature shape, which is sort of like this U-shaped keys, and they're nice and broad. The large keycaps. The travel on this one is a little lower than, for example, what we saw on the Legion 5i recently. Not a lot of travel, but the typing experience is still very, very nice. Like, I wish that this keyboard was available across other machines as well. For example, let's say the HP Envy that we recently reviewed. Would have been so nice to have these keys on it. It does feature backlighting. It's white backlighting in 2 stages. So that's pretty much all you get. Other than that, the trackpad on this is fairly small. Now, this is not a very big trackpad. I would have liked it to be bigger, but it's not, unfortunately. But it works well, supports Windows precision drivers, understands gestures, works with them very well. There's really no reason to complain. It's not one of those trackpads that stand out because they're so exceptionally good, but at the same time, it is so very functional and does its job so well that it sort of blends into that entire good user experience concept. In terms of ports, everything is on one side of the machine. You've of course got a USB type A port, you've got 2 Thunderbolt 3.0 ports and a headphone jack. That's pretty much it. So if you wanted to connect an external display, you're gonna have to utilize that type C port over here, the Thunderbolt 3 port. You can also expand the IO because you've got the flexibility of Thunderbolt. So overall, pretty impressive package when it comes to the IO, the trackpad and the keyboard. Now let's talk about the C940's special feature. Its ability to do yoga turn into a tablet. So here's the thing. When you have the machine in tablet mode, it's not very light. It's slightly heavy, so you need to make sure you have a good grip on it, whether you're using it in portrait mode or landscape. But what you do get is this nice large 14-inch canvas to work with, and there is a stylus that's included with this machine which you can use to annotate documents, which you can use to draw, which you can even use to sort of proof any kind of edit, if it's a photo edit or if it's text, whatever. Microsoft Word, in fact the Microsoft Office suite supports inking, so you've got Windows inking built in, and because there's a stylus you can just sort of write, annotate, do whatever you want with it. So for example, in tablet mode, this right here is a great way to watch movies if you wanted to. The speaker is built into this hinge over here, which you cannot see right now, but it's in this hinge, so if you do watch movies, know that this is going to be a down firing speaker in this orientation. If you do fold it the other way and lift it back up and hold it, then the speaker's orientation changes as well. Overall, as a tablet, it is big, it is unwieldy, and it takes getting used to. Like, you should really want to have this form factor to get used to it. But does it work well? And it surprisingly does. Whether you are just wanting to browse stuff, whether you're wanting to write, it helps with the whole note-taking concept. Like, you can have the tablet like so. This stylus right here, which is actually included with the tablet and has a really nice slot for you to put it into, where it charges through as well. It's really helpful because you can just go into your set it in tablet mode, start writing whatever you wanted, and as like I can write just fine with enough resistance from the hinge to not feel like this is gonna buckle over, and that's really nice. So Lenovo's really designed this hinge keeping in mind that if people want to use this like a canvas, if people want to use this as a book to write on, a notebook to write on, they really can. So my hand is here, I'm not holding it, and I just took down something over here. Yes, the hinge does move back and forth a little bit, but it's not enough for you to lose confidence in its rigidity or for you to make mistakes while you're writing, scribbling, or taking notes. So that's on the inking part. In terms of its sound quality, the audio on this is okay. It's not, neither is it very loud and neither is it very wholesome. It just feels like a very it's a small speaker, and you can hear that it's a small speaker, but that's all right because there is only so much you can expect from a form factor like this one. Lenovo's had to employ some really clever engineering to build a sound system into a hinge so that you can actually utilize it irrespective of the orientation it's in. So that's really commendable. So would you or should you go for the Lenovo Yoga C940? That's a very interesting question. For the money, you could definitely buy machines that come with better hardware, but you will not get this flexibility of a 2-in-1 form factor. As far as 2-in-1s go, this is pretty much at the very top of its game. We've seen the Surface Pro 7, kind of a 2-in-1 and a little on the lower side in terms of performance. It did get outperformed by an iPad Pro for a lot of things, but the Yoga C940 does seem to hold its own when it comes to performance, when it comes to reliability. Second really notable thing is that throughout the day it does not heat up, and perhaps the most important thing is that this baby right here delivers about 8 hours of use on a daily basis. So with the brightness set at 50%, if you're wondering what the battery life is like, 8 hours. Like, I can do an entire day's worth of work, which is typing, browsing the web, playing music over a Bluetooth connection, so, and still get about 8.5 hours of use out of this laptop. So it's really that impressive, and that's in combination with the fact that it's got a 10nm processor, Intel's Ice Lake series, which is optimized for power delivery, and also the fact that it's just got this really nice, well optimized hardware. So that's a review of the Lenovo Yoga C940. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below, and I'll try and get back to them as soon as I can. And as for me, I'm going to see you in the next one.